Hi, welcome to the channel. If you own a RV, you know there's probably things that are breaking all the time and you've got to fix them. I've spent many hours working on repairs to the RV I have that is a Forest River Wildwood product. And let me take you out to the rig and show you what the issue is. So in the RV by the dinette area, you have this upside down P-shaped frame. And that is a frame that I took off over here because this piece had separated from this piece, and this was sticking out a quarter of an inch, and it got worse on the trip home. So let me take you down to the basement and show you that frame. Well, here you can see the frame. This would be the top. This would be the bottom. And what they do is they have pocket hole screws through this particle board. And you know, if you build anything with particle board, you know it's susceptible to breakage. Now over here on this side, they use these wiggly type of fasteners, but there's no glue in any of these joints. Now if they'd used fasteners like this over here, maybe I wouldn't have had that problem. So what they did have was this panel, and it was nailed with about 5/8 inch brad nails. But they also have these little tiny staples. And you can see that that staple is barely protruding 1/16 of an inch. Now that's not going to hold anything. But had this been glued down onto here, maybe there would have been enough structure here to keep this from kind of falling apart. I'll be using my biscuit joiner and using number 10 biscuits to cut slots. So I've glued the biscuits into one part of the frame. Spread some wood glue. And then we'll do the same here. Add a little glue, and I like to use a brush to make sure I get the glue down into the biscuit slot. And on the part of the rail or stile that will get the abutting piece. Now I can put these together. Okay. And with our clamps, we'll start to draw that up, make sure it's flush. I have pencil lines on here to make sure it is lined up. And we can also check it with the framing square. pretty good. And then to clean up joints, I like to have a damp cloth. Now these are going to get painted, so I'm not really worried about stain not adhering or anything of that nature, but if you were doing a piece where you were going to stain it, just keep in mind that if you let wood glue dry on the surface, stain is not going to penetrate it. So we're going to let this clamp up, sit for a while, let the wood dry, and then we're going to come back and give it a light sanding. Well, there is something else I can do while the clamps are doing their job. I can install this panel and glue that down. So I've marked a line around the perimeter where I know where my glue should go. So I'll add some of the glue. And we'll use some spring clamps. Remember I told you there was these little staples sticking through. I'm going to pound those just to get them set. That way this panel can sit flat on top of the rails and style. Gonna have to move this clamp. I think that should work. These may not reach. Oh yeah, they do. I'll get some more for here and then we'll be done. Because I have a knot down here, I'm going to put some shellac on that before it's painted. So putting shellac on knots will help to seal the wood so you don't get any bleed through years later from any sap. You would think that people that build trailers for a living would be able to get their staples where they belong. But not this rig. So we're going to pull these out a little bit. Cut them off. Hammer them in. I got the same thing down here with some staples sticking out. Or nails of some sort. So we'll cut them off and that'll allow us to get the new frame back in there to fit flush. So earlier I talked about sealing any knots that I had in the wood. And I remember from working with pine before that I will get a better paint finish if I seal the entire project. So what I'm going to do is apply a coat of shellac and that will seal the wood. I'll give that a light sanding with 320 and then I'll be able to apply the first coat of paint. I don't know if it will need a second coat or not, but we'll see. So we'll finish shellacking this and we'll be right back. It is a new day and I have some 320 sandpaper You want to go around these inside corners and knock off any nubs of wood fiber. And we'll go around this with some 320 on the orbital sander. And we'll finish up with some hand sanding along the outside edges and we'll be done. So these were the old attachment point holes. I don't want to go and mark them at the exact same location, so I'm just going to offset them a little bit so I don't hit the same holes in the rig. We have one up here at the top. We have two down at this end. I can kind of look at the holes I have here. And I think we should be good. All right, now we're going to vacuum this off and get ready for painting. So the paint I'm using is color matched to the trim in the RV, and it's a satin enamel. So we'll apply this. I find that a bristle brush works best, gives me the nicest coverage. So we'll continue with the brushing and be back. It's been a few hours, and once that first coat was dried a bit, I saw some chip out areas in some places. So I filled that with some putty. And I had some problems here. Again, this plywood panel has like a plastic coating. It's like this kind of vinyl paper. And the paint wasn't sticking to it very good, so I've sanded that lightly. I'm going to give it a second coat and see if it's any better. So we'll be right back. So to finish this end cap, the only thing I have to do now is put on this piece of trim. We'll be ready to install this. But before we do, let's talk about what to do, what your options might be if you have a similar problem. So earlier in the video I showed how parts of this frame are put together by these kind of squiggly, I don't even know what they call them, but they tie the things together. And if I look over at this side, it looks like there was one here that was broke off. And the fact that they've used this tape, you know, this was put on as a result of some kind of damage to the face of this material. That's why we're seeing this here. So these screws are pocket hole screws, and they go in maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch. But there was some kind of force maybe sliding across the seat that hit this top edge. And the material that they use is 5/8 of an inch thick. So if you don't have a shop that's got a surfacing planer, you're probably going to think to yourself, well, heck, what am I supposed to do? How do I get these joints tight? Well, one thing you might consider is maybe buying some kind of a plate, a flat plate in this case, that can span the joint and put it back together that way. Another option might be to buy some kind of a simple doweling jig or something maybe a little more beefy and get some 1/4 inch dowels. You might also use a Craig jig if you want to try more pocket hole screws. But if you need to do pocket holes, you're going to have to fill these in with some kind of material like a Bondo or a JB weld and see how that goes. You might put the pocket screws in and you might follow up again with a flat plate to go across that. So I hope some of these tips help you. Let's go out to the rig now and install our finished piece. Well, thanks for stopping by the channel. I hope you learned something today. If you have an RV, you know there's always something that needs to be fixed. Perhaps the problem that I dealt with here is similar to a problem you may have, and maybe I've given you some solutions on how to fix these breakages, okay? So until next time, if you've enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you give a thumbs up, subscribe, and catch the next video. Thanks.